Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. Real dads, tough issues, and a genuine love for a fatherless generation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. I'm Rick Rivera. I'm here with Frank Lamelli and Chris Lawler. And today we have our special guest, James Lawler.
James,
right,
yeah.
James.
All right,
Hi, James.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Lucky you, James. Is
What do you got to say,
I've
boy?
been changing for Charles. So I've been training Charles. So
Yeah, Charles, your aide, he comes to see you today, huh?
So he got to arm it to
You get a big argument?
Yeah.
Did he pull a knife on you?
No, he got to my eye here. So my eye was here. This eye.
Oh,
wow.
man.
crazy.
No
Any
way.
eyewitnesses?
Yeah.
Thanks, James. All right. So we got a special guest today, James Lawler. So we were just talking about this right before we started. The thought of excuses, the title being excuses. You know, it's my belief that we use excuses. Some people hide behind excuses. Some people fail to try things behind excuses. Excuses have held a lot of us back in life, where we can where we shouldn't have let them hold us back. And maybe there's people out there who you have an excuse. You have that thing that allows you to check out and not take on life or go after it. You know,
It kind of works, it kind of goes both ways. An excuse is just a reason, not yourself, not my fault.
Yeah.
It's an outside reason for you to not do something or to do something.
Right.
It's an entitlement to do something you wouldn't normally do, but I'm not responsible. It's because of that.
Yeah.
Or it's an excuse to not do something you got to do.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that excuses come from being afraid.
Yeah.
Being afraid to take a chance or insecurity. I think it's easier to just kind of throw out in front what could go wrong, what is wrong, versus let me try it and see if I could do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I do deal with some young people that a lot of times we don't know everything. Us guys, we've been around for a while, but we don't know everything. But we kind of speak off experience. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that I know everything and I have the right answers, but in certain situations where we're talking about certain subjects, I have an idea about, I think what's a good path to take, or maybe try out some things. But it seems like I always get thrown, excuses always get thrown at me, and it's either the world or finances, or I'll never be able to own anything, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
One of the things that I come back with is I say, I know that when I was 20, 21, I know that homes were cheaper. I know that wages were less. But to me, even buying a house at $150,000 was just like a house at $1.5 million. It didn't really change because, come on. If you're a kid that you're 20 years old, you don't imagine that in 2 years, 3 years, you could buy a house. It's a very far-fetched thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I could tell you this is I grew up with tough love. So if you had excuses, well, then you had to dance with them yourself, because my dad didn't care.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if you don't think you could do it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, no, well, I got to decide.
I've told this story before, and I don't mind saying it again. When I was 17, my grandma actually asked me to quit school and work because we needed money for the house. She was going to lose it. And here I am, the hero. I step in here, I'm going to work. And so here I am. I'm delivering flowers in the morning in Whittier, and then delivering pizza at night in Los Nietos, unincorporated Whittier. So I had 2 jobs, and here I'm the hero of the house and everything. But it was an excuse. It was an excuse to drop out of high school. I didn't argue 1 second. I didn't say, wait a minute, no, let me finish high school. No, I hated high school. I was undisciplined at that time because of the way I was raised and so forth. And I used that excuse and I checked out. But now I'm a hero because my excuse is legitimate, So I'm helping my poor old grandma and we're poor and blah, blah, blah. And then I told you guys this before, but I'm working at the flower shop, and the owner, Paul Nakagawa, great man. He just said, hey, Rick, why aren't you in college? He goes, you're a smart kid. Why aren't you in college? And so here I pull out my excuse. Let me polish it up before I give it to you, Paul. My grandma and I have to work. And he didn't blink an eye. He just says, don't you know nobody cares about your bitching? Dude, I mean, harsh when you got this poor kid telling you his poor story. And it was true. I wasn't exaggerating or anything. Yeah. And he walked right through that. And he let me have it the way I needed to hear it.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about your bitching. Yeah. And it opened my eyes. And it made me realize my excuse felt real small now.
Yeah.
I thought, it's not going to, so what? So okay, so you respect me because I'm a hard worker, whatever. It's not going to get me where I need to go. It's not going to feed my family, you know? And that awakening for me, he dismantled my excuse with those few words. He didn't argue the validity of it. He didn't argue that, I should look at it different. None of that. He just says, so what? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that was such an eye-opening moment for me.
And
really freeing.
It was freeing, but now I got to take on the things that I got to go back to school. I got to, you know what I mean? Like the things I do, I'm hiding from with this. Now that's gone. So it's a little vulnerable too, but it's like, I got to do it. But it also motivated me.
Anytime somebody is presented a situation that's going to require them to do something, whether to not do something or to do something, there are always excuses arguing both ways.
Yeah.
It's just which excuse are you going to pay attention to? If I don't want to do it, then I'm going to look at the file that says reasons why not to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I want to do it, then it'll be all the reasons I want to do this.
Yeah.
What's really going on here is a evading of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Like I am too terrified to take the responsibility for what is going to happen, whether it works out or not. So you adopt an excuse, and excuse kind of becomes a scapegoat.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's drawn also from selfishness. If you're talking about something and you give some advice and it's true, your excuse is going to come back as whatever it is they can orchestrate, but it's because it's not beneficial to you, or it's not something that you really want to do.
Yeah.
I'd rather do what I want to do. So you're going to, some people get really good at knowing what to throw out there, just kind of divert the direction which is going, because I'm not really interested. I don't really want to do what you're asking me to do. And so I think it comes from different things. It comes from insecurity. It comes from personal gain. It comes from, it just depends. But an excuse across the board, however you're using an excuse, I think it's a false sense of direction that you think something's going to go, because it never goes in that way.
Yeah.
It somehow somewhere falls off, and then it ends up being to where you're left holding the bag, and it's really exposing you, and it's even harder then. And some people become liars because of it. It goes on to, the excuses aren't working, so now I got to orchestrate lies to make it more, structured for myself.
It becomes more important to prove my excuse was right than it is to actually do the thing that was being challenged me for.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. Like I had a friend who we went to X-ray school together, and he finished the course, but he really faded in the end. He just lost motivation, but he had a job in the same industry, but he would handle patients, take them from the room to the radiology department. And so it came to a point, I said, hey, dude, you're on the last 10 yards, push through. And, work and this and that. He goes, well, how am I going to, you have to do externship, you have to do free work. How am I going to do the externship? Well, dude, you should have thought about that before you paid and went to school. But I said, you could maybe find a place I'll take you on the weekends. I'm coming up with all these things, and he keeps shooting them down.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, listen, man, you need to figure out how to do it instead of making excuses how you can't. It's easy to figure out how you can't. Naysayers are easy. The dudes who are going to sit up and say, how do I get around this? How do I make this work?
Yeah.
But the truth is, the real solution's hard. Working all week, then having to go do free work on the weekends. It gets in the way of football, gets in the way of going out. It's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
The irony is that you're spending all your creativity creating excuses to not take action.
Right.
If you just take all that creativity and put it on the problem,
exactly,
it might solve itself faster than you can even think of an excuse.
Put that effort into figuring out how to do it instead of excuses.
When I was really young, freshman in high school, right? I was a pretty big kid coming into high school, and my parents all said I was going to be a football player. I was kind of like, I don't know, but they they were like dedicated that I was going to play football for Maricosta High School. And to be honest, they probably saw that I needed an anchor for my identity. I needed something because I was just kind of floundering. But I was not one of those kids who was into athletics all the time.
Yeah.
So I had a zero athletic body, zero context for what was about to happen to me.
Yeah.
My first Hell Week. Got into this Hell Week and we're running, just running and running and running. And then when you're about dead, get up and run again.
Yeah.
You know, and I was flabby. I mean, I'd be running and I'd stop running and it would take 5 minutes for my belly to stop signaling. It was horrible and it was torturous. All these other kids have been playing ball with each other and Pop Warner and baseball and surfing all day. They're all tough guys and this is all fun to them. But I'm thinking, what kind of freaks of nature are you? You know, I was always hanging in the back with all the guys that are like equally forced into a situation. So it got to the point where I dreaded football practice at the end of school so bad that I would like have a mini nervous breakdown in my sixth period. And my teacher knew it, the high school teacher, and it was like a homeroom, you know, period. So it was kind of free. And she would just let me sleep.
Wow.
You know, I'd put my head down to sleep and take a nap because she knew I was just really going through it. Well, one day I couldn't take it anymore and I broke. And I was thinking, I was looking everywhere for a reason why I don't have to do this. Consider busting my foot like I saw in a prison movie. You know, something that would injure myself that would just end the whole situation, you know.
Did you
saw
do
that
it?
in a movie. No, didn't do it. I had a better excuse for not doing that. You know? But what I did do is I walked into my coach that day and I said, you know, I'm getting behind in my school and my mom needs some more help at home. You know, I had a whole, you know, quiver full of excuses why I had to quit football. And the guy says, well, you know, it's going to get easier if you just want to hang in there. He tried to give me a little bit of encouragement, but no, I really think the best thing is I just, you know, quit. So I quit that day. All right. I went back home and I'm at home. My mom came home and said, aren't you supposed to be a football practice? No, I quit. Oh, was it too hard? So, well, I quit because of my school and, you know, not because I'm a puss, like you're telling me, but I quit for very noble reasons to be filled in later.
School's important.
And she goes, okay, yeah, it was probably too hard for you, honey. And she walked out. My sister came in. My sister was really promoted me to be a football player. Yeah. She was a year ahead of me. And what are you doing here? She's asking me. And I quit because I forget what I told her. She just looked at me. She wasn't buying any excuse I had. She just got her books and walked out the room. This lasted a week. I was off the football team for a whole week. By the time Friday came along, the reality of what I had done and the phoniness, the confetti of excuses that I had been using, they all kind of came to light. And I had to humble myself, crawl back to my freshman football coach, say I made a mistake. It just got to me and I panicked. And can I please come back on the team? He looked at me, thought about it, says, okay, you're not going to play. You're going to sit on the bench all year long. And all you're going to do is run the rest of you know, so if you want to back on the team, that's the price. Yeah. And that's what I did. Right. I held the coach's clipboard during the game. The very last game, we were being murdered by, 30 points. And it was like 15 seconds left on the clock, and they threw me in there as a linebacker. Yeah. I was an offensive guard. I didn't know nothing, but just to give me a game experience.
You're going to get hit at linebacker position. Yeah.
You know what? On that little moment, my whole life pivoted.
That game is not. No.
You know what I'm talking about? Listen to this. Because I humbled myself and I came back and I just abandoned my loyalty to all my excuses, my whole life turned. Yeah. It turned. And I had to pay the consequences. All the rest of the season, it was a wash. But what wasn't a wash is something hard got formed way down inside, where all my life was like jelly, This was like pliable and soft and with no kind of will. That little decision to abandon my excuses and to actually show up turned my life around. Because the next year,
that's a very courageous thing.
Yeah, that's a man moment.
Yeah, the next year I kind of came back and I was a little bit less clunky.
Yeah.
By the time I came back in my junior year, it's like all my body parts socked together, and I was finally a player. But I had to get past the excuses. And all my excuses were mighty. They were mighty in my own eyes. They're like idols. In fact, an excuse and an idol is very closely related. Because you create a thing, craft this thing that you're now going to consult with and take orders from. And then you're going to do whatever it tells you to do. And however your life turns out, it's that thing's fault.
The two biggest areas of excuses, just hearing you, it makes me think about this. I think one excuse is why you shouldn't try something that's going to better yourself, like a career, a trade, job change. But the other one is why you're not going to ask that girl out. I mean, you've been sitting next to her the whole semester. Dude, man up. You're gonna have excuses. You know.
What I've seen, talking about the subject, what I've seen a lot is how the mentality has changed from our time to this time. I mean, it's really become where I see more fear, more insecurity. But again, I think this maybe sounds corny or people have heard it enough or they're sick of hearing it. But I think the fact that the access that kids have and the internet to see everything is what really causes that insecurity and that fear. And then it causes for them to not want to move forward because they can't believe that they can do it. So therefore, all these excuses come out. And that's the fight. The fight is, I find myself fighting through those excuses. Before I used to be, in years past, I used to be very harsh with my words. Now, I understand where it's coming from, but I still do believe in what I believe in, meaning that no matter what generation you're in, there's always opportunity. There's always a way out. And I mean in a good way, in a positive way. There's always a way that you can recreate yourself in a positive way. Maybe this didn't work. Let me try this, And if you have your parents' help, I mean, if your parents are telling you, hey, look, I got your back. You don't have to walk alone. That's less of a reason why you should have excuses. You should, and I say that because I didn't have my dad's backup. I didn't. He was there, but I said many times before, he was an alcoholic. He wasn't there. But I honestly, and I didn't have a relationship with God at that time when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I'm only going to say that God made me in a way where I was able to somehow pull it out, but I was a very insecure, fearful young man. But somehow, some way, I knew that if I didn't do something for myself, it wasn't going to happen. And I never for once believed, even though I was terrified sometimes, I never once believed that I was on this earth to be broke and poor. And
man, what a gift it is to have that mindset at a young age, like you just said.
Yeah.
I don't know where you got that from.
I don't.
Thor must have thrown a lightning bolt and hit your mind, because when you get that, all the excuses just fall flat.
Yeah.
It's like you get that reality, you know what? The power really is mine. And all those excuses, they may or they may not be real. They might be paper mache excuses. Sometimes they're totally real. I used to dream about playing center for the LA Lakers. And, Will Chamberlain was my god. And I began to think, well, I'm kind of short, but I don't think that's really an excuse. But
remember that guy, Spud McKenzie?
Spud
that guy used to be able to slam the ball.
Yeah,
I mean, do you see what I'm saying? It's just, we have the ability to, and I get it, man. If your dad failed you, if the home was a wreck, those are just more elephants on your back, man. I understand that. But we're made with that willpower. We're made with that strength where if this muscle here is exercised correctly, you could do all things through Christ. I mean, through Christ is really, I had a facade that I put up, okay? Because the one thing I did want to protect is I didn't want anybody to think I was a wimp. And I don't mean physically. I mean, I didn't want to be that guy that's woes me and playing the same old tune. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to seem like that dude that had it together. But inside, I was a terrified little girl.
Yeah, but you don't show, fearlessness is your special power, because we've talked about You never had problems talking to girls, asking women out.
I didn't.
Chasing the tail and grabbing it by chasing the lion, grabbing it by the tail.
Yeah.
You've always been comfortable. I was never like that, man. These were things I really had to work hard to get through and challenge myself. We were talking about this earlier. I think poverty was a good motivator too, though, is because you're poor.
Yeah. We weren't healthy.
Yeah, it's a great motivator. Yeah. There's no trust fund. There's nothing you're going to lay back on. There's no safety net. And you got to make this work. But it had to come out like that. I think it came more naturally to you.
Well, and don't get me wrong. I was full of excuses. But even to that, I made sure that whatever excuse I used was somehow, some way going to excel me, not diminish me, not be caught up with all these excuses where they're going to say this guy's a joke. So more times than none, I put my own foot in my mouth to where then I said, no, I got to go through with this. So that's where I would pull that courage to be like, I'm going to lose here, but at least I'm not going to look like a loser. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I had excuses, and they came out of insecurity. They came out of fear. They came out of not having backbone that we used to say that my dad didn't give me, but somehow, some way I just put in my mind, I'm going to tell you what I thought. I thought one day in my life, I'm going to be a millionaire. I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew it was a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm still not a millionaire. I don't ask for that anymore because obviously, ever since I came to the Lord, all these things were purged out, all these thoughts, all these way of thinking, way of living. But I can tell you that I'm rich, not with wealth. I'm rich with wisdom that God has given me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rich with the discernment of taking care of the things that he blesses me with. So, obviously it takes time to get to that point. But what I'm trying to say is guys, it's in you. And I get it. I get it. A little bit of fear, a little bit of insecurity, or maybe just not knowing what direction you want to go. Those excuses may come.
Well, when you're looking at the thing that you want to do, the thing that's before you, that's, on deck, and all your excuses for not doing it or doing it, whatever thing you think is going to get you out of the trap. At the end of the day, at the end of a year, you'll have consequences. The consequences of obeying all your excuses is you'll have absolutely nothing. No, not just nothing, worse than nothing. No confidence, no ability to defeat excuses, no insight into what excuses really are. But when you step forward into the thing that you're afraid to do, and it starts bearing fruit, the fruit vindicates your actions. And you know what? Your excuses, they can't argue with that. And that's the thing, is you build that kind of muscle within yourself doing this as a young guy. I mean, we're talking to young guys that either don't have a dad or they have bad relationships with their dad. Well, that is a huge excuse that you can use to have your whole life go to hell.
See, that's why, okay.
And you got to rise above that.
I'm kind of steering in the political world here, and I don't want to, but that's one thing I have a real big problem with all this calls of racism. The what do they call it? Equality, the lack of equality, and this and that, and systemic racism, critical race theory. To me, especially if you're of a young man from poverty, man, that's just fuel for you not to try. That's just you. Why? It's all stacked against me. In my career, I'm especially when I got into radiology and management of radiology, it was all white. There was no diversity and equity, nothing. It was all older white guys who've been doing it for 30, 40 years. So if I would have bought into that way of thinking, there would have been an unspoken tension. I don't trust you. You're stacked against me, and now I got to talk to you about this job. But I never had that. I didn't care what you were. I built up confidence and an education portfolio. I had something to bring to you. But that's what bugs me about this is a lot of these young kids, they're teaching them how to quit. They're giving them an excuse not to try. I talk about excuses. Now the whole system's against you. Why should I even try? Right. And it's a lie.
I'm mentoring a kid right now. He's my one of my employees. He's a friend of mine. And his son, good kid, Christian family. He's from Mexico. Really hard for him to understand the ways here. His son was born here. His kids are all born here, so they're Americanized. He's going to college to be an engineer. Constantly, he's coming and saying, I don't think I'm going to continue in school. He just started. He's 19. I don't think I'm going to continue doing this career because I was listening on the internet that these guys that are doing this, they said it sucks. It doesn't make any money, that they did it. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I go, but do you know why they weren't able to do anything? Do you know were they 100% in what they were doing? Is that what they wanted to do? I said, have you talked to your teacher? Why is your teacher teaching this? Why is there even a class if this is not even anything that the world can use? I go, but I'm going to tell you this. Being in the construction industry, I said, I have a kid that's been with me for 8 years. Right out of college, I gave him his first job. Now he's my in-house engineer. I go, he's a millennial. And this kid has a firm now. He's interning people. I mean, he's just buku bucks. Really smart kid. Why? Because this is what he really wanted to do. And he told me that a lot of his friends told him, have you seen what's on this? YouTube, I don't know. I don't even know if it was YouTube, but whatever it was, they were downplaying engineering. That was a crap job, that it was a job that doesn't make any money. I know engineers that make a lot of money, but it's not about the career. It's not about how much money anybody's making. You can be in the middle of 20 people that make nothing and you'll be the one that makes it because it's a matter of the heart. It's a matter of the mind. And if
what they got to get past those,
they got to get past
paper mache wall. There seems like a wall. It looks like it's cinder block reinforced with rebar, but it's really just paper mache. But it looks like this is why I can't do what you're telling me to do. I can't be an engineer because all my excuses, and that's where you put this paper mache wall up. Well, another kid comes along and says, oh yeah, and they just runs right through it. Pushes it right down, makes the money that you would have had, has a career that you would have had, marry the girl that you had your eye on. You know what I mean? Because they don't let anything stop them.
Don't.
I had a guy, when I was starting out in my craft, I refinished leather, restored leather furniture. I had a guy came and he wanted me to work with him to work on cruise ships. And they would travel all over the world. Every place where a cruise ship would port, then they'd go in there and all the restoration guys would work. So it'd be a way to see the world. That was an amazing opportunity. And he came to me and says, I want you to do this because you know what about you? You don't let things stop you. Like a lot of people oh, well, we're in too humid an environment, so we can't do this work. We'll have to stand down. It's like, you're not like that. You just roll right past it. Even if it's something that should stop you, you still don't let it stop you. And I love that. Okay, I couldn't do the job. You know why? Because I have my excuse right here.
I've seen him in action. He's a pretty legitimate excuse.
And the point I'm making is that sometimes there is a legitimate reason why you're not going to do that thing. Like I'm probably not going to be the center of the Lakers anytime soon. I'm 67, I'm still holding out. But reality is probably not going to happen.
That thing is that coaches don't win the game. You have to win this game.
That's right.
All the guys have to win this game.
That's right.
All these guys have to win the game.
Preach, brother.
It takes a team, right?
It takes a team.
That's right.
When the team doesn't win, you have to win. When these guys have to win, these guys don't win.
But I'm not good looking like you. Look at this hair.
That's awesome.
No, you know something.
Look at that smile right there. That's what I'm talking about.
There was something brilliant in that, though.
There was.
When the team doesn't win, you have to win.
That's right.
I've raised my boys, and my son's off camera here. I always wanted them. One is I used to say, dare to fail all the time, and then I used to ask them this, and I heard this from somewhere else. What have you failed at this week? And they would be like, okay, they're trying to make conversation with me, right? But what the thing is, if they didn't have anything they failed at, that means they weren't trying anything. And I challenge them. Even like when you launched this business, Mark, I told you, son, go for it. I go, and you have my permission to fail if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I know in your heart, you're like, never. Okay, I totally respect that. But it's funny. There's something in preparation that it's going to be okay. It's the same thing with your brother. His brother tried a business too. He raised money for it, launched it, and it didn't work out. But I almost feel better for him because he's experienced the failure. It's very freeing.
Yeah.
But can you prepare your kids for that? Like, can you set your kids up with that mentality? One is dare to fail.
That's a really scary thing for them right now.
Well, we wish that you guys that are listening to us had those kind of parents that would set you up for that. Maybe you do. And if you do, you ought to go back and thank them with all your heart.
Yeah.
But I will say, I didn't. And let me tell you, 33 years in my business, oh boy, have I failed. But I'll tell you what, at the beginning, it was heartbreaking. It was scary. I didn't want to come back. I didn't think I could come back. Now, I mean, I'm not failing as much as I used to, but I embrace it because I've learned so much about who I am, and also to have less excuses, because once you've become a failure, there's you're at the bottom. Yeah. There's nowhere but up.
That's why the wisdom I saw in a restroom at a poker casino. I go there to play poker, playing tournaments. I'm there doing my business, and somebody wrote with a magic marker on the facility, "Some days you win, some days you learn." That's the way, you don't learn from success.
No, you don't.
You replicate what you did for success. You learn from all your failures.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with hitting a home run. But there's a lot to be learned in failure, like you're saying. It's true.
Well, remember pastors, how many pastors have told us, if your life is good, you need to be afraid. If nothing's going wrong, something is wrong.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you should be fearful. It means that if you're just cruising right along, hoping that nothing happens, you're going to get knocked off your feet.
Yeah.
But if you had a couple of moments where you got knocked off your feet and got back up, you better believe that your feet are going to be shut on the ground, and you're not going to be done. You're not going down easy.
That's right.
Now, sometimes you do.
Yeah.
But you get back up.
Yeah. That failure is a blessing.
I
really believe that. It's a good thing. It's character building. It dispels fear. Because it's almost like you hear some of these Super Bowl quarterbacks, they make it to the Super Bowl and they said, "This is it."
Yeah.
Pop Warner, high school, college.
Yeah.
I killed myself for this moment. Here I am, and this is it.
Well, after they retire, they're selling homes. Yeah. It's like I thought it was going to be more than that. It's like,
but see, it kind of teaches. It's the same thing with failure. You fail, you're like, okay, I survived this. This is fine.
Yeah.
I had that when I went back to school. Now, mind you, I had a very bad high school experience in school. I dropped out. When I went back to school for X-ray, I actually had anxiety because I didn't know success in school. I never had success in school. There's always, changing schools and all kinds of messy stuff. And so I went with fear. But the fear motivated me not to drop the ball. But
fear could be the very thing that can help you to excel.
And after I went through those first classes, my confidence jumped through the roof because I said, "Oh, I could do this. It's possible."
Right. There's a story I wrote one time explaining this kind of a phenomena, and it's set in an old seaport town. And this young sailor's having a fight with his wife. I mean, rip-roaring fight. He makes his way into a saloon where all the old sea dogs are all having a beer, right? And he starts moaning and groaning to his first mate about his wife and how their marriage is not lasting. He's ready to ship out, give it all up. And the old captain in the back hears this conversation going on. And he says, "What have you learned from the points of sail?" He's asking the man, well, the points of sail, there's tacking, there's before the mast. He starts quizzing him. It's like, what do you do with the wind is dead ahead of you? What do? You tack. You go off on an angle that engages the sail. You make your way forward, even though the wind is against you. Yeah. And when the wind is coming from the side, you throw up all the sails, lean over, and still moving forward. And if the wind is come from the backside of you, all the sails go up and you run before the wind. The thing you do is you never give up. What if it's a hurricane? Yeah. Then you reef in the sails, you throw out a sea anchor, and you hold your ground until it blows over. And he says, that's good. What do you call a ship that takes its orders from the wind? Does what the wind says. Says driftwood. That's what driftwood is. It just does whatever the wind does. That's my skill. Well, the wind's not blowing my way, so I guess I'm going over there. Says, what drives a ship to a port? And it said, well, the wind? He said, no, it's the will of the captain.
Yeah.
That's during
the will of the captain who makes decisions to still determine to go in the direction, go to the destination he has set, regardless of what the wind throws your way.
Against all odds.
It's like, I'm not taking any excuse.
Yeah.
I'm going to move forward, or I'm going to hold my ground until I can move forward. Yeah. And the wind, she always changes. Yeah. Always will change. Yeah. So if you're going to, you young guys, if your life is going to take off, if your life is going to gain ground, you got to look at excuses like those random wins. They can blow powerful, but they're just wind.
Yeah.
I would even challenge everyone out there, think of what your excuses have been or what they are, and use the same energy to figure out how to get around them or get through them.
Yeah.
And I think your life will be a lot better for that.
I think so.
And if you fail, that's okay, man.
Yeah, that's right.
It's okay.
Failure is good. Embrace it.
Embrace it. Guys, we got to close this one off. So Chris, can you close this out in prayer?
Lord, each guy and girl that's listening to this podcast has an issue on deck. They have something on deck that what we're talking about would apply to. I ask you, Father, to throw spotlights into every dark corner and show it for what it is. Reveal the excuses for what they are and give them a way forward. A way forward so they not only can achieve the goal that they have in mind today, but they build out a ripping frame of muscles to conquer everything that comes their way in life.
Yes.
In the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Amen. Great. Thank you, guys. See you next one.